All right. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us, especially given the lack of proximity of this room to the general population. We really value your commitment. And I'm sure some of you are still kind of negotiating jet lag. Before we introduce ourselves, a little bit about you. So who's here from North America? Wow. Vast majority. Latin America, Central and South America. All right, welcome. Thank you for making the trip. Europe, wow, impressive. Asia Pacific, including Australia. There you go. Man, you've traveled far. And Africa. There you go, our key speaker. Anyone that I missed? No, covered. Okay, Antarctica? No. So my name is Gideon. I work in the Office Business Group, Microsoft headquarters in Redmond. With me is my colleague Matt Ontel from the Fast Track team, who's going to join us on stage later. And then I'll present our key customer for today, our customer guest as well. So really appreciate you taking the time. I know you have other options for this session. And we'll kind of try for this session at a high level really to address one of the key questions that customers keep asking us when it comes to driving adoption of Microsoft 365. And when customers talk to us, and more often than not, we talk to IT, even though that's changing as well. And one signal of that is the Envision conference that's happening parallel to Ignite with more of the business stakeholders. But one of the key questions that customers are asking us is, what is my role as IT in this new world? A lot of IT departments are kind of grappling with this question and asking questions about, hey, with this transition to the cloud, I have to do less and less of server maintenance and worry about things that are on premises for me and my company and my organization. What does that mean? And as I'm sure many of you are experiencing, many companies today are kind of, I would say, 2 or 3 years into their digital transformation. And they're expected more and more to go from IT system management and maintenance and so forth, and keeping the lights on, as we used to say when I was in IT, to being a business enabler. And part of that is to make sure that whatever technology we implement actually gets adopted at the end of the day. Through this Fast Track service that we launched 2 years ago, and by the way, who's familiar with Fast Track? Good, vast majority as well, thank you. Very good to see. So we kind of launched Fast Track 2 years ago, almost to the date, as our customer success service for Office 365, and now it's much broader than that. But we had the privilege to work with about 40,000 customers, and by customers I mean companies or organizations. And they could be as small as a 50-person company providing a service, and all the way up to the GEs and the Nestles of the world. And really kind of an endless source of learning for us of what it takes for a company as small or as big as they are to drive adoption and business value with Microsoft 365. So the goal for today essentially is to give you a taste and to give you the key success factors, as the title suggests, to doing exactly that. Now in the time we have, we're not able to go in detail to every single best practice and every single tip and trick and lesson learned, but we can give you a high level kind of mental map of what are the things to think about, how our customers are experiencing that, and also point you to some of the resources. And right up front, I would say a couple of logistical things. One is, we really want to engage with you. So if you're around tomorrow and the next day, the speakers are here, and we're happy to engage. We're happy to chat with you. And if you want to set up time one-on-one to talk about what's going on in your organization, more than happy to do that. So we'll stay after the session, and we have time tomorrow and Wednesday before we head out. Happy to do that, which is not something we usually do in a conference. But again, this topic is so much about learning what our customers are doing that we thought it would be a good thing to do today. And then we'll also kind of, like I said, invite one of our customers to come on stage and really share what are they seeing as a customer of Microsoft and what have they done driving adoption of Office 365. So with that, I'd like to invite Ian to stage. Ian is the head of end user experience at Standard Bank from South Africa. So Ian himself is negotiating his own jet lag, but has made a very, very long trip because we've learned through engaging with Ian and his team how passionate Ian is about this topic. So please, kind of a little bit of applause for Ian for making the trip. And we wanted to do it right up front because the customer story is so important. So thank you for coming. And if you could, just for the audience, kind of set the backdrop for this,
Sure.
A little bit of kind of the transformation that Africa and Standard Bank itself are going through.
Certainly, I'd love to. Thanks, Gideon, and welcome everyone. I wasn't sure what was actually longer, my trip from Johannesburg or the walk from the food hall, but I certainly think that the trip from Joburg was a little longer. So perhaps just at the outset, it's probably worth a while kind of just framing a little around Africa. There's only a handful of us here. First and foremost, we have a long history in Africa, and we're very focused. That's our strategy as a bank. And all those blue countries, or countries denoted in blue, that's where we have presence. There's about 20 or so within the continent of Africa, and a handful outside. I'm from the southern tip, right at the bottom. That's where South Africa is. So within this landscape, we've got about 15 million corporate and private clients that we service. And over the last period of time, there's been a sort of key sort of strategic thrust from our side around how we activate these different countries and in terms of their priorities and their needs. And they do operate quite differently. Within that, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of the sort of analogy or the term deepest, darkest Africa. It often goes back to the days several hundred years ago when Africa was being colonized and it was kind of uncharted. People didn't really know much about the continent. And that's largely been true up until the last decade or so, specifically as it relates to connectivity. Because accessing the internet through Africa was really for a privileged few. It didn't necessarily, it wasn't available to all and sundry in order to do that. But that's changing. The fiber connectivity that's coming into the continent is really lighting it up in many different ways. Some sort of statistics that I was reading on the flights over is there'll be almost 1 billion smart devices in the next 2 years connecting from Africa. 3/4 of the internet traffic is being generated off smartphones. And over the last 2 years, it's actually doubled on smartphone sort of transactions. So it's growing. And as a bank whose strategy is around Africa, it's very much focused on how do we position ourselves to capitalize on this opportunity where we're literally lighting up Africa. So in order to do that and be an internet-ready organization, we're very geared around how do we kind of position ourselves into this new digital era. So we're essentially doing open heart surgery. We're changing our core banking systems. The new ways of work that I reference here is actually around how our business, similar to what Microsoft is doing, is putting our client front and center on all that we do. We think about what their needs are. We don't assume we actually go in and spend time and understand that. The mobile I kind of touched on, and the area that I come from is the IT area, and we've adopted at scale an agile delivery method. Some of you may be on that journey already, some perhaps a little further than where we are, but that's really positioning us to kind of respond significantly and indifferently to what we've been doing as a 150-year-old dinosaur bank. So to that point, let me just kind of open up, the Gideon and the team had asked me just to put a few key points here, what are key sort of focus and success areas. And I think for me, one of the most important ones in terms of Office 365 or Microsoft 365 is from our business. They're actually coming to me and saying, Ian, that piece of work that you and the team did with us, let me tell you in my business terms what it's about. This is the value it's giving to me. It's not around mail migrations. It's not around how many files we've got in OneDrive. They're actually framing in business terms what it's meaning to them. And that for me is really, really cool. It's very exciting. Second to it is, what I'm trying to do very actively with my team back home, and a shout out if they're watching on streaming. You guys are awesome. But a real key sort of value for us is to make sure that each year we derive business cases that are to the bottom line of the business, pay for our subscription fees and more on 365, and we're really close to doing that in our first year. So I want to make sure that we kind of reset our targets year on year with that specifically. And ultimately, this is not really just about the tech. It's around the cultural shift. The tech is great, but it's how the organization can actually adopt it, and that's really what we're pushing. So I think we can... Great.
So if you could kind of share a little bit of what are the kind of key challenges that you and your team have faced through this transition and transformation, that'll be helpful.
So I think the key point from my side on this one, this is not a journey for the faint-hearted. Many of you are in that process. What I've certainly found is that we had a whole host of challenges. Some were commercial. With Microsoft, we had to kind of get to the right sort of commercial agreement. Some were technical, and people like Vanessa, who's from our team here, helped us kind of navigate that one really successfully. But the technical ones are quite easy to deal with. Probably by and large, the most difficult one were the people ones. It kind of states the obvious that the people shift was really difficult. And I don't know if it's unique to Standard Bank, at least in my context, but we found the biggest resistance actually came from the IT organization. It didn't come from the business. It's actually a really easy sell with the business. When they get it, they run at it. But we found resistance at different levels, and we work on that all the time, to try and make the people cross the line. But when they come with us, they become advocates. They don't become the resistors.
Okay, that's great. And then you kind of shared some amazing and interesting lessons learned and best practices and kind of the aha moments that you've had with the team through this process. So could you share a little bit about those?
Certainly. So I'll start in the sort of top left for the view that you've got there. This for me has probably been the biggest impact that we've had, or the most valuable investment that we've made is we've dedicated a team, not a huge team, a very small one. And by the virtue of us having a small dedicated team that focuses on 365 and how we pull value out with the business, we're able to move really quickly. But if you're not thinking about this all day, every day, and you've kind of diluted focus, you're not going to get to the level of focus. That for us has been significant. What's been really cool, even though I don't have anyone directly reporting to me, they're all like an extended virtual team, but I'm finding parts of the IT organization and staff members saying, I have 30% capacity in my week. Can I give that to you? Or I'm fully utilized during the day, but overnight, could I give you an extra few hours? And that's been awesome because now we're scaling, and we're scaling not by asking people, they're volunteering, because they're kind of getting excited for what we're doing to the business. So dedicating a team is a real key sort of strategic investment that you can make. The other pieces here, picking the approaches, it differs, and the Microsoft team is going to take you through some of the best practices as they see them, but there's three approaches that I've envisaged around taking an organization through this sort of a digital transformation. The one is to kind of go bottom up, project by project, so we've been very opportunistic and got into areas and kind of generated some excitement for those business lines. In many areas that's evolved. Our audit team said, listen, this is actually something we want to reframe this campaign for our audit team or our human capital environment. And we've tailored those as well. So that's the second one. It's almost a divisional sort of approach. And the third one is very much in line with the best practice, and I picked it up from my session that I had with Microsoft earlier this year, is you do want to look for a digital sponsor. You do want to look for an executive and drive this thing top down. And we're at the phase now where we're actually doing all three at the same time. And it's working, and it's feeding on itself. And that for us has been very exciting.
Okay, that's great.
A couple other points there. Dealing with the business and getting the work very tightly coupled. Dealing with the business is really around, most organizations will have an IT area that faces off to a business function, and that's cool, but you often find they've got a backlog of work that keeps them busy, typically on their departmental systems. They need to put a new feature or a new widget in there, and that's fine. But what we find is by having the dialogue with the business themselves, when they get it, they very quickly focus on the productivity life cycle of things that they're worried about. Now, most divisional systems, often the value that gets created is when you break out of those enterprise systems, and that's when we find that there's a little bit of a sweet spot that we focus in. Now, in order for us to understand that well, we certainly made some mistakes earlier on in the journey, and that was around assuming we knew what was happening in the business. So the concept around speaking to the business people, but actually going to get in the work, go spend a day with a call center agent. Go and listen to the inbound calls. Go spend a month in with the finance manager. Go and spend time with the marketing people in building a campaign, because they know where the challenges are. They know where the friction points are. And understanding their needs is stuff that we're really passionate about, because they help us solve it with them in a collaborative way.
Okay. Absolutely.
So the other one there I've got, and it kind of couples quite neatly with the solutions one, is the tailoring the engagements. This 365 platform is big. It's like an anvil. And if you take it in its raw format and drop it in front of a user, it overwhelms them, and actually often can have the opposite effects of what you would anticipate. So what we've been trying to do is to pitch it to the right levels, to the right audiences. One of the earlier ones we did with our human capital team, they were really focused just on a product element of Word and some of the capabilities, and we actually spent better part of a morning telling them around things in Word because they used it so extensively. But what we did find, and I certainly didn't want to go and tell them, but some of these features were there for 5 years, but that for them was really, really important. Other divisions have gone straight into deep sort of solutions. In fact, there's a demo happening in one of the Power Apps ones with our ATM and our retail channels as we talk. And those ones, they knew exactly what they wanted and they went straight in. And we kind of pitch it to depending on what the audience wants. The solutions, and that kind of stems from that, is really around We do go into a place where we kind of workshop with the users, anywhere from sticky notes, kind of sketching out what those business processes are with the business, and not talking tech. We're not leading with the products. But what we do find is by picking those things up, we then prioritize it, but with a key focus to say once we've gone through that initial immersion, we're actually in a process where we prototype. And at the end of that day, or perhaps in some situations that are a little bit more complex, the next morning, we've prototyped with the first product, and they're running with it. But the key philosophy that we do with those solutions is we don't want the IT guys to go and lead that. We actually want the business guys. So we're finding some of the apps that we're now building, they're not being built by us. Some of them we help them, we advise them, but they're actually being built by people. They're built by tax practitioners, they're built by human capital people, and they're starting to scale. And I expect, if I forecast over the next couple of years, we'll have many more apps built by a business than what IT could ever build. And they're unique to their business areas.
That's phenomenal. Could you actually, it's fascinating, this engagement with the business you're talking about. Can you give an example of a solution or an app that came out of these sticky note sessions?
I'll quote perhaps two quick ones. So the one that the Power Apps guys are demoing at the moment, we have a sort of field of service agents that will go out and look at ATMs. The ATMs internally can alert you when something's wrong, but sometimes they get vandalized or the screen's cracked, and the internal sort of processor wouldn't pick that up. So we often have people running through in cycles and taking notes, and some of that would take 2 weeks to log a fault, to come into the office and register it. Now we're doing solutions with the business that they're building, where we take it with the Power App, kicks off some flows, transacts back to the office, and we've reduced our service time significantly, or improved it. And we've got other ones where we're automating how we handle our withholding tax across countries. And that on its own should pay for our subscription fees if we land that well. So we're very excited with some of them, and they're simple. Some of them are, the beauty is in their simplicity, actually.
Absolutely. So kind of to wrap this section up, and then Ian is going to be back on stage with us for the Q&A.
Yep.
I kind of asked you last night, but how has this kind of transformation process changed your point of view on IT and your role as a team within Standard Bank?
Very cool. It's an interesting one. I come back, I joined Standard Bank having spent time with a vendor with IBM for many years. I was on the sales side, and I was selling into an organization. And for the last 10 or so years in Standard Bank, I've run different divisions in the IT function, more around how the business of IT operates. And there I found I've often been quite inwardly focused. It's a big engine that we're running. But this for me has been highly refreshing. Actually spending time with the business, truly understanding what a financial services organization needs, for me has been refreshing. And we're being called in regularly at all levels on a consistent basis. So my encouragement to you is go out there and try it. You won't regret it, and it creates its own momentum to a point now where we're having to moderate the demands coming in.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ian. Appreciate it. Great story. So did Ian's story kind of resonate with anyone? All right. You, sir, if you don't mind, I'm going to pick up on you a little bit. No voice? Can you give the gentleman the mic? Should be on.
Yep.
How are you doing?
Yeah, pretty good.
What's your name?
I'm Nick.
And where are you from?
The Netherlands.
Oh, awesome. Welcome. So what resonated with you and from Ian's story?
Well, I appreciate the whole approach on how the customer uses all the adoption materials that are available. And specifically, I like the Power Apps approach because it helps people adopt easy process parts.
Absolutely. And is that something that in your company you're already doing, or is something you're learning kind of how to do and hoping to take it back?
Well, I sell it, so
okay, got it.
Microsoft.
Appreciate it. Okay, thank you for sharing it. Put you on the spot right there, so at least I'll leave you with something. And then if you can just turn off that mic, or just pass it on to me. It's always interesting just to kind of see what people take out of these stories. So again, thanks Ian for kind of sharing that, and Ian is going to be back on stage as we said. So if you went to the keynote and if you went to the follow-up session on Modern Workplace, there was a session by Kirk Koenigsbauer and Catherine Borger later on in the morning. You heard about what Microsoft 365 is. You've probably learned since we announced it in July that it's kind of the bringing together of Office 365, Windows, and EMS. Here in the session, we're not going to focus on the product side of Microsoft 365, but like we said, on the adoption side. And what's interesting, if you look at these kind of investment areas or value pillars, as we sometimes call it, what's interesting, even though they span kind of what we used to call productivity and security and IT management, for all of them, to varying degrees, you can see elements that just get switched on when the IT department deploys the technology. But also for all 4 of them, there are cases where there's not going to be any value if people don't actually kind of change their behavior. And Ian mentioned, hey, I had to go to the human capital team and tell them about Word features that were there for the last 5 years. Imagine how much value they could have gotten if they had known that those features are there. And it's sometimes underestimated that the bulk of the challenge and the bulk of the work is actually in changing that human behavior, that human interaction, and sometimes all the way to changing the organizational culture. And when we talk to those 40,000 customers that have been kind of supported by the Fast Track team, we kind of ask them, what are the keys to doing that successfully? And how have you been able, with our help sometimes with the help of partners, to do that? And when we scan kind of this base of more than 40,000 customers, essentially when we simplify it and distill it, these are the 4 success factors for driving adoption of Microsoft 365. Now, when you look at them, we sometimes simply call them SSAT, because at Microsoft, we kind of bound to create an acronym for everything. And these are kind of helpful reminders for us of what is core whenever we talk to every single customer, or when a customer kind of comes for an executive briefing, or if we travel and meet with them. What are the core things that they need to think about them? And we'll, during the session, kind of double click on each one of these 4 and give you a taste of what we've learned, what are some best practices, and what are some resources that can help you. But at the highest level, when we look at kind of the most successful customers that we have across our base, and by now it's a pretty significant one, the top customers, the customers that are showing the highest levels of usage of Microsoft 365, the ones that have the highest levels of satisfaction of our offerings, and the ones that testify and tell us that they're getting the most value out of it, are the ones that are implementing these 4 factors. Stakeholders, having the right stakeholders, and we're going to break that down a little bit. Ian touched on that. What are the scenarios? That's your sticky notes, essentially, from Ian's comments. Awareness. I cannot have a human capital team that doesn't know that there are features in Word or any other app that can actually help them drive business value. And obviously, I can train these people. So if I'm IT and I walk up to someone in the audience and I say, oh, you need to use this feature. It's really cool. Turns out that, and McKinsey did a survey on this a few years ago that you can look up, it actually turns out that most employees will not use new technology if they're kind of told to do it, or just because it's there. There's some technical aptitude elements, there's some fear of change, there's all kinds of things, all the way to, oh, is this going to replace me, right? But if you come and say, listen, Mr. Financial Analyst, if I help you use this technology, you'll be able to produce more accurate results on better schedule for the CFO to close the quarter. The CFO is committed, she's behind it, we have her support, and we're going to roll this out through this fiscal year. Here are the features that are going to help you in Excel or in any other app, and here's the training that's going to get you from where you are today to that spot. That lends a lot of confidence to those people who are you trying to kind of help use our products. So when we kind of break this down a little bit, when we think about stakeholders, and again, sounds very simple, very, very few customers actually do this. And on the previous slide, actually, I forgot to mention that if you look at these 4 success factors, we found that about 15% of our customers actually pursue those with the rigor and the method that will get them kind of to the good results. So really, really, really key to kind of make sure you have the plan behind it. When we think about stakeholders, Ian talked about a crucial stakeholder that is the team. Here we have 2 more. So one is the executive sponsor. And the executive sponsor, we ask you not to think about them as the CIO. So it's not the person in your management chain, the executive that oversees IT and operations sometimes, that we're seeking their support. It's the chief of HR. It's the chief marketing officer. At GE, for example, if there's anyone here from GE, Beth Comstock, from a marketing background. Today, I think she's vice to the chair. She's leading kind of the initiative around the digital GE, which spans not only their public image, their internal culture, but also the tools they're using with Microsoft 365 among them. So you can see someone who's really championing the company with the technology being part of that. You can see, we'll give you an example from Microsoft. Our own Satya Nadella, about 3 years ago when he became CEO, first day on the job, he went on Yammer, or probably his communications manager did, and opened a Yammer group. It's called CEO Connection. It exists to this day. Last time I checked, I had about 19,000 employees on it. And that's a way for a leader, for an executive, to show I'm real about this employee engagement thing. Like me caring about what you think and getting feedback, not through all the layers of hierarchy we have at a global company the size of Microsoft, is real. And he sometimes posts thoughts on things that are happening in the company or outside the company. If I'm a seller, a Microsoft seller in Vietnam, I can post a question and potentially get an answer from 19,000 other members of my community at Microsoft or from Satya himself. That gives a lot of power and a lot of kind of the leader modeling the type of work he or she wants the employees to engage with. And that's very, very powerful in any change management kind of process you're going through. You really want those executive sponsors to model the behavior, to carry the vision, and kind of give you the backwind and the support to drive this process. Beyond this kind of top-down examples, we also have the champions. And the champions, also kind of a group that is a little understated in our opinion at least. And Ian kind of mentioned, hey, what we do is we seek people outside of IT. Sometimes they give us 30% of their time. Sometimes they give us a couple hours after the kids go to bed. But these are the people that are going to scale your work. These are the people that sit within the business units. Again, we're not looking for people within IT. They sit in the business units. They know what HR needs. They live what marketing does every day. And they can really, really help you harness their passion to help their coworkers. What we've found, and we've done surveys on this, McKinsey has done that as well, the most effective way that we learn at the workplace is actually from a coworker. There's something about I'm learning from a peer. It's just in time because I seek their help when I need it. It's not like a forced date where people tell me, IT tells me to come to a classroom. And having those people across your organization that can help their coworkers, highly, highly effective and influential. So what we're doing from our perspective, and here is a kind of an example, a customer example on the right-hand side here. Mott MacDonald, a large engineering company out in the UK, great transformation story. And what they've done is not only kind of set up this champions program, but they've said, hey, if you're from HR, let's say you're a recruiter or an HR generalist or an HR business partner, whatever your role is, if you become part of our champions program, we're going to pair you up with a more senior HR executive that's going to coach you on your daily work. And they found that this kind of is a win-win situation. They get someone who's passionate about technology and how that contributes to HR. The champ gets not only kind of to fulfill their passion and helping their peers, but they're getting someone senior in HR to coach them through their career and their daily work. And they found actually, interestingly enough, that executive, not surprisingly to anyone who's been part of a mentorship program, they're benefiting because they're getting feedback from people in their organization or telling them, hey, I'm using this technology, this is what it's doing to me, it would be great if you can sponsor, and they're getting more executive support, going back to kind of the executive sponsor point before. Ourselves, we have kicked off a champions program. We have those within Microsoft, but this one is a little different and wanted to kind of note that out to everyone. So this is a global customer champions program driven by our team out of Microsoft Corporate. You are all invited to register and participate. And essentially, this is a global champions program that is very small right now, incubation style. We literally know everyone by name, but will be 5,000 people by June of 2018. So joining this will give you essentially kind of, hey, this is what champions from other companies are doing, from other countries, from other industries, best practice sharing, all facilitated kind of by us, but only as a kind of a platform for customers to share those best practices. So, you can see kind of what's included in that program. If you are interested, or if you have colleagues that you think would be great for this, here's the kind of the URL. You can look it up. And we really are excited to kind of get more and more champions in this program. We'll be able to give them a lot of product materials, guidance, best practices, adoption-related kind of lessons learned and resources, and all that goodness. And when I thought about this topic of champions, I couldn't help but think about Marcus, and I want to spend a couple minutes sharing a little bit of his story. So we literally started this Global Champions program, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago. I think we have 36 of them today, right? Which at Microsoft scale, that's like a nothingness. It's a rounding error. But these humans and these people are so important. And the amount of learning that we've done only with these 36 people is amazing. Marcus, whom we had the privilege to meet about 3 or 4 months ago in person, he's an HR person in Seattle, works in one of the power utility companies in Seattle as an HR generalist. And he uses Office 365 at his work, and he's very passionate about wanting to teach the rest of the HR department at that utility company how to use it. He also volunteers in a place in Seattle called the Cocoon House, which is a shelter for youth at risk. And he started to use very simple things like OneNote and email in the cloud and Skype to kind of help organize that shelter and also help the kids understand a little bit of what they can do. And he does it with his phone, and he's very casual about it, and nothing fancy. But when you meet with him, you can see the passion with which he talks about the value that he feels he brings both at work to his HR colleagues and to those youths at the shelter. And it just kind of breaks away from any product conversation or feature conversation, and you see kind of the spark in his eyes when he talks about how he feels he's making change in other people's lives. And maybe it sounds a little bombastic, but when you meet these people, it's real. And if you're in a small company, maybe you need one. If you're in a large company, maybe you need 50 like Marcus. But if you have 50, man, you can change people. You can change the way they work. You can change the way they understand the value of technology to them. Because people like Marcus talk from the heart. They're not there to sell anyone anything. And they just see the value, and they're passionate about it, and they're willing to share. So it was a privilege to meet him. And I think what we see is that companies that set up champions programs really see the value. What we've found, again, through research, is only about 5% of us as companies set up these programs. And that's another kind of key things that you can do to drive adoption. Second kind of area under SSAT are scenarios. And this is where Ian talked about sticky notes, which is commonly used. Ian, by the way, I think it's time to switch to sticky notes with the Surface, Touch, and Ink, and some more advanced means. But essentially what we're trying to say with scenarios is it's really identifying the business problems. And I'll give you an acute example. So in the last 18 months, I've met with 2 healthcare companies. Very different. Met with IT in both cases. And with both, one was at a conference, the other one came to an executive briefing in Redmond. The question was, what are you going to do with Office 365, and what is the value you're going to get out of it? Because I was trying to understand their mindset and their planning. The answer I got from 10 IT people in the first company is, we think Office 365 is phenomenal. We're going to be able to offer people at our company larger inboxes. Good. The laughter tells me that you get it. Okay? This is not what we mean by a scenario, or a business problem, or a business priority, right? The other company out of the UK, part of the national kind of network of hospitals, when asked the same question, the answer was, we're going to use SharePoint Online to reduce patient care errors, and essentially, SharePoint is going to help us to save lives. First of all, we put them on the record, we recorded it, we made it a thing. But you could tell that they have a vision for this thing. It's not a technology for them. They're not passionate about a certain feature of SharePoint, but they found a business need that this technology is just going to serve them in addressing, that's all. But it's a real need that has real business value to them. And when we check back with them, I guarantee you that network of hospitals will have much higher usage of Microsoft 365, a lot higher customer satisfaction because they're solving a real business need. And essentially, to sum it up, this is what we're saying here. So you can see kind of the bullet points and the action items that you need to go with, and obviously kind of measuring and everything. But these are things that are pretty straightforward. It's just, to Ian's point earlier, going out there, sitting down with the business unit, understanding what are some real things that you can go help them deliver. And on the left-hand side, you can see a mix of things. Some are kind of generic. Some are more function or discipline specific. And the more you are specific, like something specific for HR or for finance or for sales, the more chance you have of really kind of helping them with their business need. So that's kind of an interesting intro, but we wanted to give you a little bit of assets. Unfortunately, we can't show the live website, but if you go to this URL, apologize for the length, you can see the site live. But I'm going to just kind of use some slides here. So the productivity library essentially was a concept and then delivered to help you do exactly what we just talked about. Identify those scenarios. Sometimes, like Ian said, he called Microsoft 365, I think, an animal or a beast. And it's pretty, the surface area is pretty big, and customers often say, you know what, I don't even know where to start. I don't know what ideas to come to the business with. The productivity library right now has about 200 of those scenarios or use cases across Microsoft 365, and we're adding more and more as we speak. And then it also cuts across industry and function, right? So if you go to the library, it's a pretty simple concept. It has cards, content cards, that give you kind of, I'll show you in a second, but the kind of the high-level view of the scenario, just to give you an idea. And you can use these, essentially what customers are doing is use these as those kind of virtual sticky notes, digital sticky notes, when you sit down with a function in your organization. So you can essentially filter these by industry and function to make it more relevant to you and to the business unit you're engaged with. And then what you get essentially for each one of those 200 use cases is a high-level description, a video that describes it. At the bottom, you have steps of things you, as the business enabler, need to do to go through. So it's pretty detailed and pretty actionable. And it also gives you resources. So here, even though the font size is a little small, when you go on the site, it's going to be pretty clear. So for this use case of engaging employees and empowering employees, you have resources, everything from suggestion to a project plan, tips and tricks, adoption, best practices, templates that you can use, all the way sometimes to the flyer you can print out, brand as your own, and put it in the cafeteria when you're kind of launching a new feature in the organization. And customers love it. We actually had the chair of one of the largest medical device companies in the world write an email to Satya, I think, last week, and say, hey, Satya, just wanted to show you what my company has done with the materials you have, essentially. They're launching a part of Microsoft 365. They took the materials from here, essentially. I don't think the worldwide chairman knew where they took it from, but he was like, hey, this is some things that my team is doing with Microsoft 365. And Satya kind of forwarded to our corporate vice president, said, oh, this is great. Who is this? And turns out it came from this asset. So customers are using this and kind of branding it their own, adjusting it, which is great, and really shortening the investment and time and effort they need to invest in kind of launching parts of Microsoft 365 in the organization. So if you're wondering kind of how to get started, this is a very simple kind of process outline that you can use. If you explore the productivity library, has some ideas, you can really ask yourself very simply, hey, if I'm in sales, let's say that's the business unit you're engaged with, what do I want to do? Do I know anything about what I'm going to use to address that business need? And how would I know if that's success? And as you all know, in being involved in many projects, kind of nailing and defining those success metrics is key, because that's how you're going to track and show the business unit the return on their investment as well. So, very simple, but again, when we talk to customers, not many of us are actually implementing this approach or any other approach. And we're still a little focused on kind of the technology itself, rather than asking ourselves, hey, what is my finance department going to do with this thing once it's deployed? So with that, I'm going to kind of turn it over to Matt, who's going to talk a little bit about awareness and training.
Thanks, Gideon. Good afternoon, everybody. As Gideon mentioned, I have the privilege of working inside the Office Engineering Group in the Fast Track Center and have had the chance to work closely with thousands of customers and partners. And I'm really excited to get up here today and talk to you about these last two components of awareness and training, because when we talk with customers every day and share with them these best practices, you get a lot of kind of head nods, like, of course, we need to make our people aware, and of course, we need to train them. And then inevitably, after launch, we kind of talk and say, well, how did this go? Or what did you do in this case? And it's like, well, we sent an email and we offered them a training room to go and sit in and do. And how did that go? And so this is just an area that this is simple, but not easy. And so we see a lot of customers who kind of come to this stage, they focus so much on the deployment. They've gotten all the technical details ready. They've figured out their migration path. But this adoption becomes, these aspects of adoption become an afterthought. And so I really encourage you all to really partner with the various business leaders in your organization. So when you think about launching Office 365 or Microsoft 365 inside your organization, think of it just like you're launching a product externally. You wouldn't just send an email or send a tweet or a post and say, hey, we've launched it, it's available. You would think about a multi-channel approach. You think about this being before launch, at the launch, and post-launch. So down there at the bottom, you see this. Think of your awareness and your communications campaign as being an ongoing work stream that never ends. One of the greatest benefits of moving to a service like Microsoft 365 is the value continues to come. You continue to see new features and new capabilities that just light up inside of the service and that you can turn on and enable for your workforce. And that ability to constantly come back to the business and say, hey, there's something new here that I think is going to help you save lives, increase sales, reduce your costs over here. This is something that doesn't stop at launch, but something that you can continue throughout. And so when you're thinking about this, think about it in two different ways. I want to call your attention to the second bullet on your communications, focusing on the what's in it for me, right? I literally saw a communications a template that said, hey, your inbox has gone from 100 megabytes to 50 gigabytes. And I can remember sitting next to somebody in this company. I was on site with them up in Connecticut. And the person turned to me and said, what does this mean? I don't understand. That's not communicating in a language that is clear on the what's in it for me. So when you're thinking about these communications, be really clear. Help people understand in a language that they can understand exactly what it is that's going to benefit them and such. And so we're going to have a chance for comments and questions as well at the end. And also, so everyone knows, I see a lot of phones going up to take pictures. The slides will be posted, and everyone will be able to get a copy of these as well. So don't worry about that. The second is around engagement events. Now, engagement events are a really great way to create buzz. I got to work with one of a large global consulting firm as they were launching. And one of the things they did really well is the placement of these events around the globe. They actually had a Follow the Sun campaign where they went from location to location and had events in the they had tables and basically info booths in the cafeterias, in common areas, and so people could go to these events and almost did like a fair-like, where they had booths with the different products and services, and people could go and they could actually learn and talk with experts in these areas. And so one thing that did is it really created an opportunity for people to come together, discuss, for the IT group to get feedback from folks and understand help build that FAQ list of what were the questions they were getting. So when you're thinking about your awareness, go beyond just thinking of, hey, we're going to send an email saying, hey, the migration is coming, hey, this is going to look different. But really thinking about how you're going to talk about different aspects of the product and talk about how you're going to target different groups within your organization. So this can be, and one of the things Gideon just mentioned and showed you on that slide is we're providing you now with some great templates and resources, so you don't need to reinvent the wheel here. Go take our templates and then change them to adapt to the use cases and scenarios that you're focusing on, the language that's relevant to your transformation in your company. So make sure you reuse those as well. And then the events, don't forget about the online events, right? There's folks who can't make those in-person ones. They're not at a location where you maybe are going to have those. So how are you going to use Skype meetings? How are you going to use Skype meeting broadcasts? How are you going to create the ability for people to join through these online events? You know, NetGroup had a great point here. You'll read here is that when they went to communicate with their employees, they wanted to focus on how it's going to make their lives easier and help them do their jobs better. So they branded in their branding into their 4 things: work anywhere, work anytime you like, work together, and work on any device. So they've taken all of the templates and things that we provided and then made that relevant for them. Now I want to take a second and actually show you an example of a video that was produced by Mott MacDonald, the firm that Gideon mentioned before. So this was produced by them using some of the assets that we make available, and then they actually hired a firm and worked with their internal business partners to produce this. Just to give you an idea of, notice the language they use, notice how they align this to the company's strategic objectives and business strategy overall.
Technology is advancing at a remarkable pace. We're embracing the changes and transforming the way we work. We're going digital and improving our systems to stay ahead of the competition. Office 365 gives you your digital workplace with more powerful tools, access from anywhere, and easier ways to share, so you can spend more time with your team, your practice, and your customers. We know you sometimes need to work when you're out of the office. Now you can get to your own documents and files on any device with OneDrive. Share files with colleagues and manage permissions so only the right people see them. When you need a central hub for documents and information, team sites are the answer. They also give you the tools you need to coordinate a project, all in one place. You can even collaborate with customers and partners, sharing only the information you choose. With pressing deadlines, you often need to work with colleagues in different offices and countries. Collaborating on documents is simple, no matter where you are. With online office apps, you can work on the same document simultaneously, right there in your browser. Because you can take your digital workplace with you, you can continue to contribute and see updates. Information is valuable. With mobility, we all have increased responsibility for protecting it. Office 365 helps with security settings and device management. Customers choose us for the quality of our people. Through practice communities, we supplement local know-how with global capability. Delve lets you access this talent, showcase your own expertise, and see what's going on in your network. Then you can talk on Yammer, sharing and learning to develop innovative solutions for our customers. When you get together in meetings and calls, make the most of the time, capture ideas quickly, and organize your work with OneNote. Create meeting notes together and assign actions with a simple click. In our competitive markets, we need to impress. Now you can create compelling visual presentations online. Text, photos, and videos transfer seamlessly from any Office application to Sway and look great on any screen. Office 365 will continue to evolve as we introduce new features to your digital workplace, so you'll always have the latest tools to succeed. You'll have the freedom to contribute to our global knowledge network and work more closely with partners, so customers can benefit from our renowned professional excellence. Going digital will help us to use our ingenuity to create lasting value for all. Office 365, your digital workplace. Communicate, collaborate, and get more done.
So an example of a customer taking the assets, driving an awareness campaign that aligns to their overall strategy. So as we shift gears from awareness into training, you're going to notice a few themes across both and an alignment there. So when you're thinking about training, the key things here, Ian talked about this in the session and the way that they've done their sessions, is there's really understanding the why behind the what. Why are we doing these things? This isn't about having a larger mailbox. This isn't about a feature that enables a particular feature. It's about what does that enable you to do? How does that empower them to get their job done better, quicker, faster, so they can go spend more time with their family, so they can achieve their goals, so that they can do what's important to them. So use real work scenarios. You know, you saw there in the video the focus on, hey, in meetings, use OneNote during your meetings to take notes collaboratively and capture the action items. So it's not that, hey, did you know there's tasks in OneNote? It's put that in the context of what it is that people are doing in their day-to-day work. And then use multiple formats. You know, one of the things we used to see in a lot of the training plans is, oh, we worked with our training department and we're going to run, here's the schedule of sessions that we're going to run. People can show up if they want. But what's really important is, and it's great to have classroom where people can have the dialogue, but then look at online training through Skype meetings that can be interactive. You can use the whiteboard. You can use polls in that to make them much more interactive. But then also the on-demand videos so that when I'm in the moment and I'm actually needing to say, hey, how do I do pivot tables in Excel? You know, they can actually go and find recordings of those training sessions and small tidbits. And this is an area we're making significant investments in as well. And we're going to talk about some of the resources that we're making available so that you can basically take those training assets and simply point your people in that direction. You know, this quote from Carlsberg, I think, really highlights their effort to make sure that their training really hit the mark and really empowered their end users. You know, their focus on a consistent approach, using the services, trying to keep that complexity to a minimum, keeping the default settings in a way. This was something I remember in discussing with them when they created their materials. Part of the reason they decided to keep the settings as it were is so that they could basically continue to point to the assets that we were continually updating and changing. So our training team is actually taking the resources that we're talking about and reviewing those and refreshing those regularly as we update the service. So let's talk about some of the lessons learned that we've seen directly from our customers outside of the general 4 things we've talked about. Ian talked about this at the start, dedicating resources for adoption. Just by show of hands, how many folks have an actual dedicated adoption or end user focused work stream or part of their project for their deployment? So about half of it, roughly, or so. So that's great. And interestingly enough, that the number of hands every year is about the 3rd or 4th year we've done this presentation. And there were a lot fewer hands 3 or 4 years ago. And it's really encouraging to see that. But for those who didn't raise your hand, really give thought to how this is a dedicated work stream and a dedicated focus for a team. Learn, iterate, and reinforce. How many folks are actually using and implementing, like Ian said again, an agile type of framework or agile delivery method in your organization in some way or fashion? Raise your hands. Okay, about 2/3, 3/4 for the most part. So even if you're not doing this from a development perspective, and maybe it's not made its way into your actually technology development implementation, adoption is a great place where you can actually take this agile approach to start with a team or a department or an organization and go in and have that workshop, work with them to figure out what scenarios are going to work for them. You know, do the sticky note workshop, come out with that long list of use cases and scenarios, and then actually take those, implement them, and then quickly learn from them before you go on to the next one. So this idea in almost all of our visuals, you should have seen, you know, in the scenarios one that Gideon highlighted, it's a circle. This never ends. This is something where you always have opportunity to go back to the business and deliver more value. You know, if you want to get into a role where there is just going to be an endless amount of possibility to create value, this focus on end user adoption, it's always going to be new ways that you can create value for the business. Conducting a dry run launch prior to full rollout. We'll talk about early adopters here in a second, but really this idea of having an early adopters program, having your champions, and starting with this small group. So just related to the one before, you can learn, test, and iterate. And then this last one, there's a few sessions this week that cover this that I think are really key, is use Office 365 and Microsoft 365 to launch Office 365. Okay? Use Teams, use Yammer, use SharePoint, use the tools themselves. Some of the best examples here was from ABB. Andy talks about, had the chance to actually see some of the materials they were used, and my colleague got a chance to work on this one. And you see here, he mentions, and Yammer provided itself as a perfect grassroots change agent. Teams formed dynamically and worked alongside the implementation groups in each country. Huge, hundreds of thousands of employees, global implementation. people, champions, coming together, forming a community, and using the tool to help lower support costs, answer questions for one another, and at the same time, they're getting to know the tools and learn themselves. So let's talk about conducting an early adopters program. So why do it? Gather your initial feedback. Develop and recruit from this potential group for your champions. Get that feedback that's so important. Now, one of the key things that I see a lot in these is that people start these early adopters and they say, hey, who wants to be a part of this? And you get all those people who are really who are by definition self-select as early adopters. They always have the latest device. They're always trying out the latest technology. And you want to have folks like that. They have a passion. They're really interested in helping you and being like Marcus and kind of, if you will, being an evangelist for the new technology. But one of the key points here on the last bullet there on the right-hand side, don't just focus on the folks who want to be early adopters. Find users who struggle with the technology. Be willing to bring them in and understand what do they struggle with? What are their pain points? How can we make this as easy as possible for kind of all segments in our organization and all the various groups that are a part of it? So, there's always folks, bring them along with you. Engage them early in the process and get their feedback. One company in the Southwest U.S., financial company, they focused on this and they actually said, hey, who are the people who are the last to adopt during our last implementation? And they found a subset of those folks and brought them in. And what they really learned, going back to the lessons we've learned in awareness and training, is that when they communicated the last rollout of a previous platform, the people read the communications, they even went to the training, but it was not relevant to them. They just literally said, I don't even understand what it is that you're communicating to me. And so they then tailored the communications for this audience in a way that resonated with them. And so in the end, they kind of turned these folks all the way around to being advocates and becoming a part of the program. And then, leaders who will become advocates. There's no better way to get a leader on board than to simply make them a part of the program and provide them an opportunity to show leadership in the organization and show innovation and show impact in that way. So I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about, from the Fast Track team, and didn't talk about Fast Track. And I know Gideon had to do this, so he had you raise your hand if you're familiar with Fast Track. By show of hands, how many folks have actually worked with Fast Track in some form or function? Great. Oh, well, more than half the room. That's really great, and hopefully everyone's had a great experience, and if not, please come find me afterwards. I want to hear about it so we can learn and get better from that. But one of the things that, if you haven't worked with Fast Track or one of our partners that we'll work alongside as well with Fast Track, is just know that we are here as an ongoing benefit. So if you worked with us in the past or you haven't worked with us yet, if you own a subscription to Microsoft 365 and Office 365, a qualifying subscription, we are always here as that customer success service to help you get value from the service. So we're there to help with migrations. We're there to help with the deployment process. We're there to help you with adoption. All of this that we're talking about here is all things that our Fast Track managers and engineers work with our customers day to day on. So just always feel free to, if you will, pick up the phone or send an email back to your Fast Track manager or engineer, or go to fasttrack.microsoft.com and log into the portal and fill out a request for assistance, and we'll be in touch with you in a short amount of time to engage and figure out how we can tailor this for your organization. So we're going to highlight some of the resources that are available. First off is the Fast Track website, fasttrack.microsoft.com. If you're not familiar with it, it has a whole bunch of great resources for Windows, for EMS, for Office 365. There's a great adoption guide that's on there. It's a full, about 33-page PDF, has a checklist, and that checklist is customers who've been through this process giving us feedback and them paying it forward to all of you. And so if you haven't seen that, go look at it, use it, find out what's relevant, and actually go through the process. Those are the lessons learned the hard way from other customers. Use the productivity library that Gideon showed to identify your scenarios, see what resonates with your business. Leverage the kind of ideas that Ian and his team have used around actually going in and doing these workshops and building basically a backlog of use cases and scenarios that you can go in and deliver as one organization called it, conspicuous business value. I just love that idea. It's just obvious. There's just this ability to say, we've not just migrated mailboxes, we're actually delivering reduced service time, improved sales, etc. Learn from your peers. Join the tech community and the adoption tech community. So you see the AKMS/Drive Adoption link there. So there's this larger, huge community with lots of different sub-communities in it. The adoption one has a lot of great content. Probably a lot of you in there sharing your ideas and your feedback, asking questions. So connect with one another, both here at Ignite, but also on an ongoing basis. And then, of course, training your end users. This Office 365 Training Center, we just in the last week have announced a whole bunch of updates, a whole bunch more content and scenarios that are covered. We have Windows 10 Quick Start guides. So just, don't try and reinvent the wheel. Don't make this harder. Go out there, find the assets that we're developing and continuing to update, and make sure you use these in both your launch and then in an ongoing way. Come back to those. So now I have the fun part of giving out some swag. So these yellow boxes up here that I have are actually Raspberry Pi kits. So for those of you who like to tinker and mess around with it, hopefully these are appealing. And for those of you who don't, maybe you can sell it to somebody who does or give it away. So real quickly, who can tell me the 4 critical factors to driving Office 365 that does not work for Microsoft? Yes, sir, you don't. There you go. Yes? Yep. Stakeholder scenarios, awareness, and training. My friend Eric, congratulations, sir. Well done.
He's using OneNote.
Oh, and he's using OneNote to take notes. I'm not sure if that's cheating or really A+ student right there. So well done, sir. Well done. The benefit of OneNote. All right. What is one of the responsibilities of an executive sponsor in an M365 rollout? Just one. Yes, sir. Use it themselves. Excellent. Well done, sir. And a Raspberry Pi for you. Everyone look under your seats. There's no Raspberry Pis there. Sorry. All right. Next. Where can you find relevant M365 scenarios? Microsoft in the back, standing up, sir. Fasttrack.microsoft.com. Well done. That's close. Productivity library on that site, you'll still get credit. Come on up. There you go. You get a Raspberry Pi there. So the productivity library is the place to go. And again, the thing there's over 200 scenarios filterable by function, finance, HR, sales, 2 or 3 or 4 more that I should know off the top, marketing, and then by product and also by industry. And we're continually updating that. So if you have suggestions, if you have ideas on things that are missing that you found really work in your organization, let us know. We'd love to be able to highlight that and improve that as well. All right. Why should you include an early adoption program as part of your M365 rollout? Yes, ma'am. Learn as you go and make adjustments as you roll out. Absolutely wonderful. Good answer. All right. So gather initial feedback, getting your feedback from your users, solve potential problems, and then recruit for that, from that group for your Champions program. So with that, we are going to open it up to Q&A for the last, we've got perfect 12 minutes. So we thank you so much for joining us during this time. We'd appreciate it for those who want to stick around for Q&A to please do so. And Ian and Gideon are going to join me on stage to answer any questions that you may have. If you don't mind coming up to the microphones, and that way we can get it on the recording in the live stream, that would be great.
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Just a quick question. I'm in IT. We are driving Office 365 to the organization. I have people beating down my door to become part of the early adopters. It's great. And I'm disappointing every one of them because we're not rolling it out is it in entirety. I've got 65,000 mailboxes, so we're taking small steps. Sure. And as soon as I say, well, we're moving your mail there first, they're disappointed. They want OneDrive, they want SharePoint, they want connectivity to the native apps. So then all of this excitement that I'm building, I'm losing immediately because I'm giving them a bigger mailbox, which is great for IT, right?
Sure.
But it's not great for that. Are there any suggestions or strategies, or are most people drinking from a fire hose and giving them everything they want?
That's a great question. So it's a very, very good question. And one we see a lot of customers, this debate around, do we do them in parallel and kind of all at once with the suite, or do we do them serially in kind of a series of steps? And here's what I've seen the most successful organizations do. They will make the suite available to the organizations that want to pull on that want to say, I am ready for OneDrive, I want to be an early adopter in that. And so they've enabled the service for that group while they're planning the mail, because the migration and mail is really the piece that's going to take you, depending on the size of the organization, months at a time. So you say, hey, we're launching Office 365, and then 9 months later, that one person's getting their mail like, hey, now you're finally a part of it in a way. Right. And so we see those organizations that will actually enable and empower their groups to say, we're empowering them with the full suite. And then they can pull on that to make that possible. Now, again, depending on resources that are available, but that's what we see is that they're kind of saying, hey, if you want to be an early adopters, we're not going to have the resources to support and do everything that we would for everyone down the line when we say do launch OneDrive across the organization. But if you want to be a part of this early adopters and you're ready for that, they make that a possibility for them. But definitely would love to talk with you through the details of how those organizations have done it. But this idea of making the entire suite available, because that's really where the power comes when you start seeing that experience versus, hey, your mailbox is moving.
And we see that as IT. Our security department is just not on board. So they're like, you can have this little piece.
You're not alone.
And then you can have so it's just a challenge.
That's a great
if I had to revisit on our strategy, we spent an inordinate amount of time focusing on the upgrade and the migration activity, but I would push the users to the portal from day one and work backwards. So there's a lot of capabilities that are inherently there, and I would encourage all of you to start that and then switch on those other elements as they're ready. So for me, that would be a bit of advice that I would give.
Great comment.
Yeah.
Sir, on the left.
Yeah, hi. I've been wondering if Microsoft, or especially Fast Track, have given gamification a try. Did you find any value to that in training users?
I
Yes.
can give you experience as well from Bank, but you go first.
Please.
So we did. We found it was a little gimmicky to some degree, and we found that keeping it current based on some of the features that were coming out was actually quite costly. So whilst we kind of launched it, it peaked at our summer holiday period when people clearly weren't very busy, but we've actually wound it off. We may dust it off at some point in time, but it was difficult to keep it current.
Yeah, and I would say from a Microsoft perspective, each customer has their style and their culture. And the kind of the local culture, and we found that it's very hard to enable a solution for gamification that satisfies all and fits everyone. So we would work with specific customers to kind of say, hey, these are some things we learned from other customers, and this is some tools you could use. So we haven't enabled kind of a platform of gamification. One specific area where we're starting to do it is these champions, where we would do things around, for example, how their profile will look at on LinkedIn and give them kind of a badge of honor. And these are things that people value a lot. So these are kind of niche areas where we are doing that.
One thing I have seen, and it might even have been you guys if I saw your badge correctly with Air Canada, is like scavenger hunt concepts where you've actually like said to folks, hey, we're going to, if you can complete this scavenger hunt, finding things in Yammer, finding things in Teams, and other things, then you can get up for a prize. And I've seen that be very successful. But again, it depends on the corporate organization, corporate culture, and otherwise. But I haven't seen like into the platform, but more of kind of just kind of fun games in a way. So
yeah, for us it was unfortunately turned out to be a very manual process. We kept having to generate that report, so I was kind of hoping that some kind of thing we could tap into it automatically generate.
You guys had some real creativity in the way you pulled it off, by the way. That was really well done. Maybe we'll come over here and then.
Hi, there is a lot of great content in Fast Track Portal, but do you have any plans to translate and have that localized to other languages? Because as I see today, there is a lot of great content in English, but Portuguese or other languages, there is a lot of content missing. So
what language are you?
Portuguese.
Portuguese. Yeah, so I actually think we have the site localized in 24 languages, if I'm not mistaken.
But just the overall site, not the use cases and the library. So the content, the videos, and so on. So
okay, good feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have a good answer for you.
Yeah.
So we'll take it back to the team and see what happened there, because it should be localized throughout.
Yeah, just high level, just not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Good feedback.
Good feedback. So you're saying the site's localized, but the content, the resources.
Not only the site,
Understood.
We need the productivity library, the use cases, and so on, so it make it easier to our users.
Understood.
Absolutely.
We'll
Fair
take that
feedback.
back to the team. Thank you. Yes, sir. Oh, and sorry, got two more. Sorry. I think you made it to the mic here.
I just want to say great presentations.
Thank you.
I have a comment that I would like to share is when I meet, let's say, VPs and users, there's a key element that I discuss with them to adjust my message to the people who I talk to is the key resources that we all use is the time. So when I meet, let's say, a VP that is working 6 days a week, we all have busy schedules. And when you meet someone and you tell him, hey, I will create a solution for you that will permit you to save times and do more with less. So this, when you reach the user and you get their attention. So you have really great tools that you provide us to do that. And then I just want to share that. So if you, whether any solution you create to the user and it takes them more time to do their job that they are actually doing, then it won't work. So, but if you bring something to them, solutions that you create, and then they will do more with less times, then that's the key elements to use when you speak with them.
The one thing we can't get more of. Excellent point.
Yeah,
that's right on. Come on over here.
Hey, great presentation. I really wish I would have been here last year. Do you have any advice? We are in the process of actually, doing this, and one thing we've found is with the different levels of subscriptions, it's difficult for us to roll out this big launch because, for example, not everyone is getting the same technology. Or we're finding that some of our managers are like, whoa, we don't want these people to log in remote. We don't want them to know about it. And then this group sits by this group and they're saying, well, why do you get this and why do I not get this? So did that happen? Do you have any experience with that or any advice to those of us that, this, I don't know, it's difficult.
Absolutely. Yeah, and do you have?
Yeah, we also run with different SKUs. In fact, we're still on the entry level, the sort of E1 and the E3s, and particularly in our branch landscape, it's E1. If I look at that, the power of just putting people onto that portal, just going through a browser interface is massive. And in a branch context, many of these people haven't had email productively only in the last few years. So for them, giving them just little bits makes such a big difference. And you don't need to give them everything. You just start with stuff that's relevant to them. But by knowing what's applicable, you don't have to hit the whole suite. You just give them things that help them solve practical things in their lives. That for us has been the real sort of shift. And they gradually start pulling you in on different SKUs. So again, philosophically, I would start with everyone's got it through a portal and watch what happens. The rest will come in.
And the only thing I would say is this, one thing we talk about is personas. Just being clear, you probably have a finite set of, hey, there's this persona, this role, this group, and kind of then you at least can get an overview of the entire organization and what you're dealing with, and depending upon what's an actual restriction versus a preference.
Right.
And then working through that, because I've seen a lot where managers say, oh, don't give them this, they're going to waste time on it, is one of the ones. Like, hey, don't give them that, they don't need that, they're going to waste time on it. And that's not a technology issue, that's an HR and a people issue, and that's a preference, not a restriction. So I just think working through those and being detailed in that, but we're happy to talk through the specific, but I don't know if there's...
You nailed it. I mean, we've certainly found this is not just a technology, it's our processes, and it's very eye-opening for us. So this is just great. I can go back and be like, we need a full-time person to
you're not alone.
And nothing else.
Yeah, you need an Ian or two. Yeah.
All right, I think we'll take one more and then we'll stay over for other questions.
Okay,
yes, ma'am.
So mine's probably pretty much for Ian. And in the keynote this morning, they said, that Teams is going to be the hero. So what kind of response or issues have you had with your organization in regard to Microsoft Groups versus Microsoft Teams versus SharePoint team sites?
Yep. So we've actually, almost by purpose sort of designed, we've started with groups. Simply because it's kind of tied to mail, it kind of fires up some things, and you can ultimately embed that when people do roll in Teams. Technically, we had some security considerations around Teams not being Intune aware, so we actually put Teams to the back of our rollout schedule, not to the front, which is a bit of a pity, but I've spent some time with the product teams this week, in fact, just kind of sharing some of that practical feedback. But I certainly think Groups gives most people the mechanism to kind of understand in a soft way from their email account into all the other sort of features, and I find that that's the sort of good sort of entry-level bridge, but Teams is an amazing product. It really has a good spot, but we're seeing the adoption almost a pull, so we're not pushing it. People are starting to just bring it because they're aware and they've got the fundamentals in their mind and they know when they can use it, and it's starting to grow quite rapidly now.
Okay, all right, well, thank you.
Great question. So I apologize, we have to make the room available for the next session. What I'll say is there is the eval slide at the end.
Oh, yes.
I will, before you head out, First of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for the commitment to find the room and then to stick with it. Microsoft has committed to donate $5 for each evaluation you submit. Donate it to the Red Cross organization, to the recovery efforts in Florida, Texas, Louisiana, and even Mexico with the earthquake. So please, beyond the feedback to us, it's a good deed and a good cause. And thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you.